All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to the Bill of Rights Institute's 2020 AP U.S. Government and Politics Prep webinar, where I am trying to help you get ready for the upcoming AP exam. And we're almost there for the AP exam, and we're almost at the end of this webinar series. This is the last episode. And so if you've been sticking with us for 9 nights now, wow, congratulations. That's quite a feat in itself. But we've been doing 9 nights. The previous 8 nights are all available if you want to go look on YouTube, search for the Bill of Rights Institute. They're all there. Those were content episodes. We talked about all of the content, or at least a good portion of the content that will be eligible to be on the exam you're going to be taking. And we talked about the Constitution, we talked about federalism, we talked about the branches of government, legislative, executive, judicial. We talked about the bureaucracy. We talked about the concept of civil liberties and the concept of civil rights. And so what I thought we'd do tonight in our final episode together is some final thoughts about the exam. And I want to give you some insight. I don't have a ton for you, but some insight as to what to expect when you take the exam. And then we'll talk about sort of how to approach the exam and what resources are available to you. And then I'm going to open it up to questions and see what you guys still aren't understanding that maybe I can help to explain a little bit. So I'm off the road. I'm back here in my basement, hunkered down, coronavirus free, I hope, and coming to you live. So let's get this thing going. Now, I always like to point out some of the resources that are available to you. The first place that you might want to go is the billofrightsinstitute.org. Tons of resources here, especially good things about the required Supreme Court cases and about the foundational documents. There's really good stuff here that you can get into and take a look at. It's all free. It's all well done. I mean, the Bill of Rights Institute, if they do it right. So that's how they did their website. And then, not quite as professional, but still free. My website, if you go to SargeNotescom, you can go to my website, and I have resources that you can access there as well, which may help you in preparing for this. Again, this, just like the Bill of Rights Institute, totally free. Use what you want, take what you want, read what you want, whatever. It's all there sort of just for you. All right. So I want to go over a few things that just to kind of give you a feel for how this is going to go down as far as we can tell. There is a lot of uncertainty as to exactly what this is going to look like. So I'm definitely going to give you a website to go to where there'll be more updated information, hopefully, as we get even closer to the exam. But we're not far away right now. So a few basics about it. Hey, it's on Monday. Yeah, Monday afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern is when you're going to be taking this AP exam. So just 3 days away, 3 days away, 4 days away. So yeah, that's the big day. Every exam, this one included, is being billed as a 45-minute total exam. Now, in the past, you probably know this was like a 3.5-hour exam that involved a multiple choice section and then a writing section. And they've sort of pared all that down. They've gotten rid of all the multiple choice, and they've got us down to sort of the bare bones, I guess. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to write 2 short essays, and that's it. That's going to be what you're tested on. So you want to be ready for that as best you can. One is going to be an argumentative essay, where you're going to need to make an argument and support that argument with evidence. And they're going to give you some stuff to work with. And I'll try and show you an example of this here in a few minutes. but you're going to you're going to put forth a response to a prompt. You're going to back it up with evidence, and you're going to link it all together. So this is where I think it's so important to understand the big picture and how all of these pieces, the Constitution, federalism, the branches of government, people's civil liberties and civil rights, how they all kind of interact with each other, so that you can be prepared to attack any question that comes up. Because if it's a simple factual piece that's sort of escaping your mind while you're writing, you're going to be able to have some resources with you. The College Board has said, hey, there's no way that they can prevent you from looking at resources, so why fight it? And then there's going to be one concept application essay where you're going to be given a fictional situation, and you're going to apply reasoning to it based on what you know about government and politics, and come to some conclusion as to, you know, responding to the prompt. Oh, here's a question with that. Yeah. Okay. So I want to make sure. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can see the chat or not, but there's a question. Can you talk about Citizens United versus the FEC, or will that not be on the exam because it's about election spending? Citizens United won't be on the exam. The thing that is like really interesting is that this College Board has posted a sample essay for the concept application, and one of the parts of that question asks about Citizens United. So it, you know, I'm not sure why they did that, but I think they're all probably scrambling over there. So let's give them a break here on this. But no, Citizens United will not be on there. Anything that has to do with elections, interest groups, political parties, campaigning, political opinion, public opinion, political opinion polls, political participation, voting, none of that will be on the exam. So that stuff you can just like set aside. This is Constitution and federalism, branches of government, civil rights and civil liberties. And that is it. Okay, good question. All right, so timing. Here's what you're going to see. They're asking you to log on about 30 minutes early. You're going to have an e-ticket, which sounds like it's going to come to you in your email. You're going to then use that e-ticket to log on and register. And they're saying 30 minutes early because what happens is the exam starts automatically. So at 4 o'clock Eastern, you know, or 1 o'clock Pacific, or, you know, whatever time in Hawaii, I don't know. This thing's going to go. And when it goes, then the clock is starting on you and everyone else taking this exam at the exact same time. So you want to be ready. So 30 minutes is probably, I mean, I doubt it's going to take you 30 minutes to get your registration done, but in case you're having some issues with your internet, or in case the servers at the College Board aren't handling it, in case anything happens, it gives you a little buffer there. So I would get on half hour early and get started with this. Okay, 4 o'clock Eastern, this exam starts right up, and you have a 30-minute window to write and submit the argumentative essay. And what they're saying is basically you have 25 minutes to write it, and then you have 5 minutes to submit it. Now, we all know submitting can take, you know, 30 seconds, but we've all been in that situation where we're trying to upload something, especially if there's a clock going, and it just doesn't seem to be working. And so that's why they give you 5 minutes. But when that 30 minutes is over, and this doesn't mean you can't submit it like before the 25 minutes is over, you can submit it whenever you're done, but the window closes at 30 minutes and then it shuts down, and then it shuts, and you can't submit this essay after that. Also, I think once you submit it, you can't like, oh, I made a mistake and changed something and then resubmit. Like, you're sort of shut, and then you wait, and then you know, at let's see, 30 minutes, so it'll be 4:30 Eastern, then a 20-minute clock will start, the concept application essay will come up, and you'll have really 15 minutes to write the concept application essay, and then 5 minutes again to submit it. Now, I know this is 50 minutes of time. They said 45 minutes. I'm just passing on what they're saying. So I see that there's a little disconnect there, but you probably won't be spending 5 minutes each to upload these 2 essays, but you might, who knows? So that's kind of what it looks like. Again, none of us have ever gone through this kind of exam before. So, it's a little nerve-wracking sitting here talking to you because, if this was a regular exam year, I'd be giving you all kinds of like, oh, don't forget to do this and don't because but I don't, none of us have ever done this, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes down. Are there essential notes we should have with us? Irish asks. I'm printing it out. I'm going to get to, hold on, because I'm getting there, man. I'm getting there. You always seem to be like one step ahead of me. So let's look argumentative essay real quickly so that you guys understand. And you I hope have worked on these in class throughout the year. But just in case you haven't, here's how it's being kind of scored, okay? First, you have to, and these are directly from the College Board, articulate a defensible claim or thesis that responds to the question and this is so key, establishes a line of reasoning, okay? Guys, I have been an AP reader, and this is what will kill people, because the establishing a line of reasoning, it really, I would say it's probably more than this, but there's 2 obvious ways to go about this. Number 1 is the because ... and the other one is like due to ... and so what you have to say, like, yes, the power of the president has grown beyond its constitutional powers and turned it into the most, I'm just off the top of my head, the most powerful branch of government because and then your is the rest of your essay where you're going to use the evidence. But if you don't have that established line of reasoning, then you don't get this point for the thesis. So please, please, please establish a line of reasoning. Okay. Secondly, you're going to have to provide evidence from one of the foundational documents listed in the question to support the claim. And they'll give you 2 or 3 foundational documents to choose from. You have to use one of those documents as evidence. And therefore, you have to be able to talk a little bit about one of those documents. Now, this might be the Constitution of the United States. That might be one. So that gives you a whole lot of leeway. And one might be, Brutus I, which gives you a little bit less leeway than the Constitution itself, And then you have to provide evidence from a second foundational document, or, whoa, didn't want that to all show up, or from knowledge of course concepts to support the claim. All right. So you can use your knowledge. All right. You know what? We're just going to go back. Get rid of all that stuff. Come on. Go away. There we go. All right. So you can use your knowledge, or you can use a second foundational document. Now, the question always comes up, can that second foundational document be the Constitution if you use the Constitution as your first foundational document? Can you use like the Bill of Rights or something? No. All right. Use something else. So it can be any other foundational document that you've studied, but you can't use the Constitution twice, is my understanding. So go with that. And then you have to use reasoning to explain why both of pieces of evidence support the claim. And this, ladies and gentlemen, be explicit. Now, I don't mean like be raunchy, okay, please, but explicitly do this. Say like, here in, Federalist number 10, Madison argues about, combating the power of factions, and then, you would say this goes back to the thesis because blah, 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 you know? And so be very, very, very like upfront about it. Make it easy on the readers, because then, you know, the readers are going to do their best to try and give you as many points as they can, but it's much easier when we see something that's so clear that we just go, oh, well, that was easy to do, you know? All right, so how it's scored, just again, so you know, your claim or your thesis is going to be 1 point. And that's where you respond to the prompt. You don't restate the prompt, so don't like say, you know, restating the whole thing. And again, establish that line of reasoning. Get that because or that due to in there. Then there's 4 points possible for evidence. Now, the College Board has this all laid out for you, and I'll show you where you can get sort of the layout here. But basically, if you're going to get all 4 points, here's what you have to do. You have to use 2 pieces of evidence, the foundational document, and then another foundational document or some other knowledge you have from the course, and explain how both of them support your claim or thesis. Okay, so Margaret asked, can you use any constitutional amendments if the Constitution is listed in the question as your first foundational document and then use something else? I wouldn't. So if you use the Constitution as your listed foundational document, then don't use an amendment as your second piece of evidence. But if you use like Federalist 10 as your listed document and the Constitution is another listed document and you go ahead and use that, that's fine. But then, you know, and there are people who are going to hedge their bets on this stuff and they'll try and do 3. And I don't know if that's what you're asking about with, and then use something else. You're going to be under a time crunch here. So I really wouldn't try and overdo it. If you find yourself with a lot of extra time, yeah, throw on another piece of evidence. Why not? Cover yourself. But I wouldn't. I would do that first, and then if you want to throw an amendment in there, in that situation, go for it. But this is what all you need for the evidence: 2 pieces, and both are going to support your claim or thesis, and you explain how they support your claim or thesis. And both, yeah, are supporting your claim or thesis. And then when the reasoning, with the reasoning part, you have 2 points, and you explain the relationship between the evidence and the claim for both pieces of evidence to get all the points. Now, don't worry about remembering this stuff, because it's going to say it right on the prompt. Like, it will have this stuff. Don't forget to use 2 pieces of evidence. Don't we? So, okay, so Margaret says, I meant when it says the Constitution, does it include amendments? Yes. Yeah. Those are, yeah, treat that as part of the Constitution. Absolutely. So don't worry about remembering all of that. Okay, so concept application essay is the second one you're going to end up writing, okay? They're going to give you an authentic scenario, something which is realistic, and they're going to ask you to explain the effects of a political institution, behavior, or process, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like as far as we can tell. And then they're going to ask you to transfer your understanding of the course concepts and apply them in a new situation or scenario. So they're going to give you this scenario, and they're going to say, kind of explain how the government will work within this, and then take your understanding of the course itself and put it into it and apply it to that scenario. And what they're trying to do here is they're trying to write questions that allow you to use all kinds of outside resources, but do not, you can't do well on them if you are only using outside resources. They really require that you understand what you're talking about in order to be able to do well on these. Okay. So the AP board or the College Board has put up 2 samples, and the website here, apstudents.collegeboard.org, you may or may not know about. but that's for AP students. It has information about not only what the, some sample essays, but it has lots of information about what to do to get ready for the exam, and it has information about what to have with you for the exam, and all of that. So I thought maybe we just take a minute. I don't want to go through the essays with you, but I just kind of want to show you, since we talked about kind of what they are, what those essays kind of look like. Let's see. This is this website right here. And if you scroll down, you'll get to, whoops, that's comparative government politics, sorry. United States government politics, and oh, wait a minute. I think I went to the wrong thing. Oh, yes, sorry. When you're at the apstudents.collegeboard.org, I forgot to say that. Up at the top is this learn how we're supporting students during the coronavirus, right up there. That's what you click on, and then that will take you to all the information for this year's exams, okay? And all kinds of online AP classes and those, and you can access practice AP questions and everything. And let's see, we go to take the exams. There is a where was it? Course-specific exam information. And so you look for AP United States Government Politics, and it tells you the exam time and the exam timing. This is all the stuff that I gave you. I mean, I really just took it right from here, kind of. And then if you scroll down, there are example questions, and they'll give you right here. So argumentative essay is going to be something like this, all right? The United States Constitution establishes a federal system of government. Under federalism, policymaking is shared between national and state governments. So I give you some background here. Over time, the powers of the national government have increased relative to those of state governments, much like we talked about in our second episode of this webinar. Okay, so now take a position about whether the expanded powers of the national government benefits or hinders policymaking. Now, you want to decide, like, are you going to say it benefits or are you going to say it hinders? Please don't write an essay that says sometimes it benefits and sometimes it hinders, because you're not gonna get your thesis point, because you're not answering the question. It's a question that prompts us take a position. So you got to decide. So if you go with benefits, then go with it. And if you go with hinders, then go with it. And then it says use at least one piece of evidence from one of the following foundational documents, and they give you Brutus 1 and Federalist 10. Okay, so you have to use either Brutus 1 or Federalist 10, and then you use a second piece of evidence from either a foundational document. So you want to use Constitution, it's wide open, or you can use knowledge that you have from other stuff. And again, right underneath C in your response, you should do the following, and it lists all the stuff there, so you don't have to remember exactly what it is. So read it over and just go like, okay, yeah, I got to remember, I got to do this. And then when you get to the concept application, you have sort of a scenario that they're giving you. Since 2008, the Alliance Defending Freedom, a conservative Christian interest group, has promoted an annual event known as Pulpit Freedom Sunday. On this occasion, pastors are encouraged to challenge a provision of the tax law known as the Johnson Amendment, which prohibits political activity by certain nonprofit organizations, including religious organizations. While the Johnson administration does not restrict religious leaders from speaking out regardless of social issues, it does prohibit them from contributing money to political campaigns or speaking out in favor or against candidates running for political office. On Pulpit Freedom Sunday, as an act of civil disobedience, pastors and religious leaders preach openly about the moral qualifications of candidates seeking office. So now you've read that through, and then you're asked to do A, B, and C. And this is where they threw in something which shouldn't be here, but let's just stick with it. So A, referencing the scenario, describe an action Congress could take to address the concerns of the interest group and explain how partisan divisions could prevent this congressional action. Now, these are going to be short. Remember, you have 15 minutes to write this. So assume with an A, B, and C that you're going to get 5 minutes for each one. This, I mean, I wouldn't like start writing some fancy essay here. I would get straight to the point, you know, in this, here's, you know, what the, and they won't ask about an interest group. Again, I think this is a bad example, but this is the one that they posted and there's nothing I can do about it. So you say like, you know, here's what Congress could do. And here's how partisan divisions within Congress could prevent congressional action. And then you move on to B. Then for B, again, this is not eligible for the test, but they put it there. Referencing the scenario, explain how restriction imposed by the Johnson Amendment relates to the legal questions addressed in the Supreme Court's case of Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. Well, we didn't go over that. You don't need to know Citizens United. So, you know, it'll be some, but you get the idea, right? So use this thing, this court case that you're supposed to know to talk about how it applies to this scenario. And then finally, describe a liberty found in the Bill of Rights the interest group referenced in this scenario feels is threatened. Explain how this group might use the judicial branch to try and influence a change in this policy. So you see, it kind of gives you a lot of leeway, but these are going to be really kind of short answers here as we go along. So a few questions are popping up all over the place. Irish, what are some ways that the expanded powers of the national government help with policymaking? I've always had trouble explaining this. Well, with expanded powers in the national government, you have the ability to make a national solution. I mean, I was so hoping someone would ask a question like this, because I pulled up like a whiteboard and yeah, we can do this. So so here's the idea. If you have sort of like the national government, right? And the national government's power is ever expanding. Well, then that means that the power of the states is going to be decreasing relative to the power of the national government. Okay. Now the national government has lots of cash. The states have less cash. The national government has lots of resources with a capital R, and the states have resources with a lowercase r. You get the idea here, okay? Plus, if you do something on a national level, then you only have to do it one time. Whereas if you do it state by state, you have to do it 50 times. So it becomes much easier to do to make policy at the national level than to try and do it in every single state. Now, having said that, there are some things where it's easier to do it state by state than nationally, because the national government simply won't act on it. So, for example, and I've used this example a few times, states that have made laws legalizing medicinal marijuana, they're using this way of going about it state by state, because the national government is just not going to pass that law. They're not going to do it right now. But their idea is if you go state by state, and maybe by the time you get to like 40 states or so, then the national government will turn around and say, okay, well, you know, there's enough support here, but let's just make this a national thing. But it's long, it's difficult. I mean, I think California passed their first law in something like 2004, 2005, something like that. So, and we still, you know, it still hasn't become a national thing. So this is a long drawn out process. And Aliana says, can you explain how it would hinder policymaking? Sure, because if the national government gets more power, so again, you have increased national power, right? And you might have something that wants to be done, like there are states that want to do something their way, like let's say they want to run their education, their schools in a certain way. Well, with the national government overseeing education policy, especially if they're throwing dollars, those are bad dollars, but you get the idea. If they're throwing dollars to the states, then the states are going to be maybe less likely to try and reform their education, because if they do, then we'll put up the eraser tool and we'll just take away those dollars that are going to that state. And now you see the state's problem. So it can also hinder policymaking because of the increased power of the national government, if that helps. Jake says, can you use a foundational document to acknowledge the other side of your argument? Like, you're arguing for an expanded government using federal intent, and can you cite Brutus as the alternate to your argument, like the counterclaim? I would not do a counterclaim. You're not going to have time. I mean, it's good writing, and it's good argumentatively to acknowledge the counter, but there's nothing in the rubric which will give you a single point for putting a counterclaim in there. You have to provide two pieces of evidence that support your thesis. So if you say this, if you say that gosh, my mind's going blank about the prompt. So if you're saying that it benefits policymaking, then you're only going to get points for using two documents or using two things that support the fact that it benefits it, along with explaining what they are and how they relate to it benefiting policymaking. If you then turn around and talk about hinders, you're not going to get any points for that because it doesn't support your thesis. Now, I know that, yes, in a good argument, whenever you're doing a good debate, whenever you're doing a good paper, if you're taking an AP history class, yes, counterclaims are great. However, on this essay, you're not going to get anything. There's no benefit to writing a counterclaim. So just leave it alone. Just go straight forward and do your best at laying out an argument and supporting it with the documents. Okay. And I just say that sometimes you got to be pragmatic about this stuff. You just have to say, like, this is what's going to get points, and so this is what I'm going to do. So hopefully that gives you sort of an idea. Now, when you go to the College Board's website, they don't have a posted rubric for the second, the concept application essay, but they do have one for the argumentative essay. And so you see, like, the claim or thesis is here. I guess I have to unlock the document, but anyway, and then they talk about, like, here are the evidence that you can use, and different ways that you can get 1 point or 2 points or 3 points or 4 points, and what that means. This is on that site that I showed you with the coronavirus changes. So you can look this over, but I sort of said, like, here's how you do sort of the best that you can on that. So that's a couple of samples of what you're going to look at. The other thing that you have on this on this AP website, if I pull this back up again, is that you have sample questions, but you also have like, here's the stuff that I showed you about how the things are going to be, like what you're going to be asked to do, what to have ready. You have exam timing. And then before you get into the actual, like, course specific part, they have some information about testing guides. And the College Board has even put up some videos on YouTube that you can look at, which will go through parts of the exam, online, AP course schedule and review lessons and stuff that are down there at the bottom. So there's a lot of good stuff on this site. And I highly encourage you to use that. All right, so how do you write the essays? Well, I'm not talking about, like, procedurally, but, like, what do you write them on? Okay, apparently use whatever program you want. You can type them into Word, you can use a Google Doc, you can use Notes, which I was like, Notes? Oh yeah, there's Notes. Being an Apple guy, like, I'm a little upset that they didn't put an Apple option here, but you can basically type it into anything you want to, is really what it is. And then you can even handwrite it. And then depending on how you do it, when you submit it, You have to do it. You have to submit before the time expires, and they have instructions on how to do that. And from what I can tell, it's basically, you type up what you want, you edit it as you want, and then you sort of like copy it and you paste it into their thing. If you handwrite it, then you submit, you basically take a picture of it, and then submit that. So, you're going to want to make sure that however you like to do it, you've got the things in front of you, open, ready to go. You don't want to be wasting time sitting there like hoping, come on, Microsoft Word, load up, all that kind of stuff. Or I forgot to log into Google, and now my Google Docs, I got to log in. What's my password? Don't be stuck in that situation. Be ready to roll. What can you reference? Here's the question that Irish asked a while ago. Any class notes or study guides that you have, that you find, whatever. I have study guides on my website. Unfortunately, they're not filled out, but they're just, sort of study guides. So you can use all of those. You can have all of those with you. You can have textbooks. You can have any classroom materials that you got with you. And then you can have any previous assignments or assessments that you took. Basically, anything that you got from the class, you can have, and you can reference it. But one of the things that the College Board has made very, they've tried to emphasize this over and over, is that you want to, and I think this is a good piece of advice, you only want to reference the things if you are unsure about, a fact, So if you're going to sit there and you're going to say like, okay, well, gosh, I'm supposed to write about Federalist 10. And I always get Federalist 10 and Federalist 51 confused. And so you quickly flip open to your reference materials, whatever they are. And I mean, it can even be your textbook. You go, oh yeah, Federalist 10 is, oh yeah, okay, that's that one. And okay, and 51 was that one. Okay, and I'm going to write about 10. Okay, boom. And then you go. You can check that kind of stuff just to make sure that you're okay. You're not going to do well if you're looking at this going, I have never paid attention to either Federalist 10 or Brutus 1. So let's see, what can I learn about one of them right now? Because you're simply going to just run out of time. You're not going to be able to write a good essay if you have to research the information before you write it. So I would have stuff around you and accessible, but I would try and use it as little as possible. Or maybe even, and this thought really just occurred to me as I was saying that, maybe even write the essay the best you can, and then when you're finished, look at how much time you have, and if you want to fact check a couple of things with your notes or with your textbook or something like that, then you go and do that just to kind of clean it up a little bit. And because that way the thing's already written and you can submit it at any point, and now you're just kind of double checking yourself to make yourself feel better, really. But I mean, you're going to know once you start writing, you're gonna know how well you understand this stuff. So that's basically what the College Board has given us about this. Now, what I want to do is I want to open up to some questions here. We got about 20 minutes. So questions and answers about, and I want you to think big concepts, okay? So explaining, I can help explain something, things that are, that you have a hard time just looking up in your textbook. If you're looking for like what was Federalist 10, then you can look that up pretty quickly using your notes or using your materials or anything that you've gotten, including the slides that you print out from the sessions that we've done. Those are resource materials, so you can use those, and then you've got a little quick use for it. But big sort of overarching things, what are some things out there that you guys don't understand? And please, someone start typing something, because now I'm just stalling and I'm going to start telling you stupid stories. If oh, look at that. Let's see. We can't use Google because we could probably enter cheating boundaries. Okay, so this is whoever asked that. Not real. Oh, Irish. Okay, thanks, Irish. That was the part I was trying to avoid because it's really kind of unclear about the whole thing. Let's see. The stuff is all on here, but submission guidelines, get tips for taking open book, open note exams, your class, the internet can be, okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so here's where I think the answer is going to be, is right here under the part that says your class notes are better than internet searches. To me, this says you can use internet searches. However, what you cannot do is you can't post things about the exam in any way that is going to share any information about the exam with anyone else who's taking the exam at the time. That's the last part. They're collaborating with others. So, I mean, I read this and you know, I would look over it again to say that you could do that. But they do make a point of like, you're gonna like run down the rabbit hole if you start getting on Google and chasing down websites which aren't all that helpful. Everything that you need should be in the notes and handouts and everything else that you've gotten throughout the year and your textbook. So you know, I would do that. Okay, can you explain with Shaw versus Reno about how there can still be minority majority districts, and what does Shaw versus Reno actually prevent? Okay, so Shaw versus Reno is really all about creating district boundaries to the disadvantage of a minority. So using race using race-based boundaries. But yes, it does seem to contradict the idea of a majority minority district. Margaret, why are you making me say all these difficult words? Majority minority district, because that is done by race. But the Supreme Court has said that if the boundaries are drawn with race in mind to create a majority minority boundary, then that's okay because it's not harmful to the minority. In fact, the argument is that it actually helps the minority because at least one congressman from that state will be elected by a majority minority district. But if states try to use redistricting in order to break up racial groups, you know, so like, you know, you have like, let's say this is your state. I'm gonna go green here. Why not? Whoop, green. So like your state is kind of square, you know, you're Colorado or something, and you have a high concentration of minorities in one part of your state. You can create a congressional district which is going to like incorporate most of them and that make that a majority minority district. That's okay. But what you can't do is you can't do like a pie graph thing that centers in the middle of the minority heavy area and say like, here are our districts, because the minority vote has now just been diluted to the point that it doesn't make any difference, because all of these other areas with majorities will outvote the small minority contingent that sits in sort of the center of the pie in this case. So if it helps minorities and creates that majority minority district, then it's okay. Whereas if it's used to hurt, then it doesn't. Irish asks, what are some restrictions of the First Amendment? For example, yesterday you talked about no human sacrifices, so that isn't protected by freedom of religion. Okay, I'm going to keep on drawing because I'm really having fun with my little whiteboard here. Okay, so if you have, when you have the religion piece, you have the establishment clause, which says that that the government can't establish a religion. So this effectively eliminates things like school prayer, and prayer before football games, and displaying 10 Commandments, unless it's part of like a whole bunch of other historical documents that include other religions, those sorts of things. You can't favor a religion. The other part is the free exercise. And this is more on the personal side, because we're protected against the establishment of a religion by the government, but we're guaranteed our free exercise of religion. However, free exercise can include lots of beliefs, okay? And beliefs, they're all okay. It's okay to believe anything under free exercise. Where you get into a problem is when you have practices, okay? And if a practice of a religion is overtly illegal, the free exercise clause doesn't supersede laws, which I know is going to seem backwards because the Constitution supersedes laws, but it's a limited free exercise. And again, it makes sense when you use something extreme. So you've got human sacrifice. I mean, I think we can all agree that it's probably a good idea to stop people from using religion as an excuse or even as a justification for human sacrifice. You can sacrifice animals, but you can't sacrifice people. But another one that is big is the whole idea of like drug use. If a religion centers around using otherwise illegal drugs, then that practice is not okay. Another example, the Christian Scientists. Christian Science, I think that's the right one. They sort of deny deny medicine, and they believe kind of that God will God will decide whether to heal them or not. And there's really two sides to it. So it's okay for adults. If you're an adult and you decide you want to deny medicine based on your religion, totally cool, right? But it's not okay for kids. So parents who are part of this religion cannot deny their kids medical attention for religious reasons. So those are some of the limitations. And I don't know that you'll necessarily need to get that deep into it when you're writing these things, but you can see like the common theme here, in that like your beliefs, you can believe anything you want to, but when you're looking at things which are illegal in other facets of society, then those can't be completely just justified by religion. Okay. Let's see. Rochelle asked, we choose to handwrite our answers and take a picture. Would we be penalized for using a phone, since it would be a second device being used on the test? I don't know the answer to that one. I'll be honest with you. That's where I get a little bit confused with stuff. Again, if we go back to the this to the website here, they have it all laid out, and there is something about submission guidelines. Here we go. So how to attach photos, and then you go here, take one photo, tells you got to write stuff in there. Don't submit till you take your photo in portrait, not landscape. Make sure there aren't two recommendations. Take your photo in well split. See, I don't even really address it here. Although I guess my question would be, in response to your question, Rochelle, is that if your phone is the device to take a picture of your handwritten paper, oh, I see, then you would be submitting it onto maybe your computer or something like that. If you got to take a picture, you got to take a picture, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly. And this is, you're getting into stuff where like they just haven't been as clear as they could. And so I really can't, I don't know the answer to that one. I'm sorry. Iris, is there anything content related that we should really focus on this week for studying? I'll tell you what, if I could answer that question, then I can't, because I don't know what possibly will be on this. Here's what I think maybe would be a good way to approach studying. Okay, when you're looking to study, think about it this way. You know you're going to have foundational documents. Okay, so I would maybe create a list with like bullets. And remember, this is only units 1 through 3. So if a foundational document is later, then you don't need to know it. But I would definitely look at foundational documents number 2. I would look at Supreme Court cases. And then I would do the same, like list them, and then bullets about kind of what they were about and what the justification, the constitutional reasoning is for that. Number 3, I would look at checks and balances, so that you understand how checks and balances work between the different branches. And you might want to have like a diagram. Every textbook will have this diagram. Okay, so people always say it helps to like write it yourself, because then it might stick in your head. But if you're pressed for time, find the diagram in your textbook and bookmark it. You know, put a little sticky note there or something and write checks and balances diagram. And then the other thing I would do is number 4, look at powers. You know, and I would say for each branch, I would say list 3 powers. Make them big ones, not little tiny little things, but 3 powers. And that way you've got something really quick to look at, because with 3 powers, you can probably nail almost anything that you're going to need to write about. If it goes beyond that, you've got your other materials. But then if you have those things there, with the foundational documents, Supreme Court cases, checks and balances, the powers for branches, Oh, and then I would probably, just in case, because it typically comes up, or it could very well come up, 14th Amendment, why is it important? And there's probably more, but like if you put all of this onto like one piece of paper or two pieces of paper, I think that's going to be something that you're going to find really valuable sitting next to you when you get ready to go over this. When it comes to studying, I would not spend too much time worrying about the specific, like don't try and sit there and memorize specific facts about, the number of congressmen in the House of Representatives, or little things like that are going to be fairly easy to look up if you need to when you're taking it. I would focus on like the big picture, so that when you're getting ready to take the exam, you kind of have this idea of, if this is the government, you kind of have a big idea of like how it works, and how the different branches interact in the government. And especially when we talk about cooperation, how can groups and government cooperate, and how are they forced to compete? And then when they do those, what are the results? Because that's kind of like the big overview of this. And if you can see the big picture, then if the question is about a small part of that, then you can put everything into the context of that small part. All right. So guys, you've been through, many of you, 9 nights with me. That's 9 hours of listening to my voice, and I don't like listening to my voice for 10 minutes, so 5 minutes even. So congratulations to you. But look, I want to thank you guys who've been tuning in, because I think especially this year, when we're all confined and we're all trying to work in circumstances that none of us predicted would happen, I think it really shows a real dedication. And I think that those of you who have been watching every night or most nights, and some names come up over and over and over, Oleana, Irish, definitely. Like, you guys are probably here and you're getting a lot of review. And I want you to go into this thing believing that you can do this, because you can. And if you prepare for it and you're ready for it, then you're going to do just fine. But don't get freaked out and don't second guess yourself. That's the biggest piece of advice that I can give you. Because once you start second guessing yourself, then your confidence is going to fall apart, and then you're going to get flustered, and it can lead down a very bad road. So believe in your knowledge and be comforted by the fact that you have resources, so that you're not going to freak out over some small piece of information. If there's a fact that you're not sure about, you've got your textbook, you've got your notebook, you've got your hand, they're right there. I would even maybe think about trying to set it all up. And they have a practice exam that you can take on that website I showed you, which I believe is timed. So you can even like run yourself over the weekend, like run through that and try and do it. And like, if I need to get information, do I know exactly where the textbook is so that I can get as much as I can? I think that is going to be important, because that'll just make you feel better. I think what'll probably happen is that you'll write most of your essay and you won't even be looking at your resources. They're going to sit there. At least that's what I hope. But don't be afraid to use them if you need them. So look, I just want to thank you guys also for for letting me come in and be a part of your review for this exam. I've really enjoyed this, and I want to thank the Bill of Rights Institute for sponsoring these and for putting them up. They're a fantastic group. As I said, on their website, they have numerous fantastic resources. So if you're unsure about a Supreme Court case or something, go look on their website and check it out. And that will certainly, you're going to find some great stuff there. So thank you to them for sponsoring these webcasts. And there was one thing that Haley wanted me to mention, and it was about the Constitution Academy. Why is the name of it skipping? Why am I losing the name of it? Haley, help me out. What's the name of it? The Constitutional Academy. There it is. Please be sure to look on the Bill of Rights Institute website if you're interested in being part of the Constitutional Academy, because it's a fantastic opportunity to virtually work on ways to change the world around you and all that. So you guys, you're too nice. Stop with all the thanks. I mean, hey, you guys are making me blush. You're gonna make me do a 10th broadcast, aren't you? So yeah, that's all I've got for you. Good luck. Believe in yourself. You guys are going to do great. And meanwhile, just as I've said every night, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and good luck on the exam. So for the last time in 2020, for the Bill of Rights Institute, my name's Paul Sargent. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful night, and I won't see you tomorrow night. Take care.